for them, and off they go. Of course, there are others who are leading the way and who are, I mean, they don't come out of nowhere, of course. There has to be some kind of business model and some kind of use for people, for things like Facebook and Twitter to have taken off. And so there from Nielsen Online, a bit of research. I know research is a little bit later in the day. For most of the past 12 months, Twitter has languished below 30% retention. So yeah, of 10 people who get on there within a month and give it a go, 7 of them won't come back. But again, they do fulfil the need that perhaps you don't get in traditional media for interaction, for response, and your ability to have input. And of course, a lot of them, such as Facebook, do concentrate on the community side, those networks, and replacing that driving around from place to place and actually seeing people up front. And of course, that's a large part of their success. So this is a little matrix of audience involvement and interactivity. On the y-axis there, running up the page, is sensory commitment, and along the bottom there is interactivity. So basically, that's saying how involved you have to be experiencing this type of media, and then what the level of interactivity is, whether you can actually provide your feedback instantly or you know, at some point. Radio obviously has a fairly low sensory commitment. You can be doing a lot of other things while listening to radio. There is a degree of feedback, of course, with talkback radio mainly. But the vast majority of people are just listening. Then you've got, all in fairly similar areas, TV, news websites and print that have a fairly high sensory commitment. You can't do too many other things while you're reading a paper or watching television or reading a news website. But again, the level of interactivity is fairly low for all of them. Ability is, rather than wondering whether their interview went well or whether people were convinced by their contribution to a newspaper article. But of course, individually, while those aggregated figures are huge, most social media audiences are individually small. They're about particular niche areas. And as is pointed out by that last chart, blogging and social media can be the most labour-intensive media of all, for not necessarily a huge amount of eyeballs or a huge amount of influence. So it's clearly something that is built as a one-to-one communication. There's that immediate response ability, but it's not a one-to-one communication, particularly Twitter and most of the others, as a lot of people have found out to their peril. And if you are a corporation or an organisation that is using it as a response mechanism to clients or potential clients, if you're providing specific one-off solutions via Twitter, then everyone's seeing that one-off solution when really it's only to that particular client, and that's obviously not something that you generally be wanting to do. And some people have got in trouble in that sense, is trying to respond to individual people's problems through what is a broadband media, something that goes to everyone. You see politicians, obviously, they're the experts at that. If they ever get a question they don't like, it's always, well, I'll seek further information on that and get back to you shortly. Obviously you're all professional communicators, and there's the usual difficulties in doing that without seeming, offhand, but it's fairly important. So, I mean, given the amount of involvement that social media does take out of everyone's day, and we've seen some large corporations trying to actually block some of these sites from the workplace, certainly, if you've got a niche product and your niche consumers are all highly active, in the IT area, or there are plenty others where there are forums that really are all particularly interested in a certain product, your online communications is going to be a big part of your media strategy. But for most of us who have a range of, an audience that does consume a range of different media, then it can be a stepping stone to getting other coverage. It can be a threat in the sense of people attacking you via these properties, or most sensibly, it's one part of a comprehensive media strategy that covers, all of the areas that your clients or your company might have consumers or customers that are interested. So now we'll sort of look specifically at how new media and traditional are relating. This is, I'm sure you all remember the lovely Claire Weberloff, who came to prominence. Well, initially she was on television. It was on 9MSN in the raw footage, so television and online through a large professional media organisation. That pretty much would have just disappeared right there, but that was put on YouTube, taken up by social media, and very quickly gained quite a bit of audience. And you can see these different lines are the four main types of media and how they covered the story over about a week that it lasted. Obviously, internet were the first onto it. Then, when Channel 9 sort of realised that it might have a story with some legs there, a couple of days later, it got a very strong run back on that channel. A huge amount of coverage on television throughout the day, a fair bit of cross-promotion as well. After that, for a couple of days, everyone was into the story. It was the latest fascinating thing, a lot of talk. And then towards the end, you can see where TV had decided, well, they'd had their run with the story, it was over. Certainly, internet coverage had pretty much died down as well. There was a lot of coverage in radio and print, relatively, and a lot of that coverage towards the end was about whether the media should have been covering that story, how they covered it. It was all very much navel-gazing, which we've probably all seen the media's done an awful lot of in the last couple of years of why they're doing things. Is it good for society, bad for society? All of those things, but you can see that certainly they are feeding off each other for all of that content that they need. That could, can turn what you would generally think is maybe a one-day story into perhaps a 7-day story, and in other cases perhaps a short-term story into a really long-running saga. So yeah, some of the comments in the mainstream media, you can see all those quick tags that they came up with: internet bogan, cyberspace celebrity, and so they had great fun with it. And of course, it was very quickly thought, well, was this some kind of stunt orchestrated by a beer company whose logo was seen behind her in the original footage? Which, if they did manage that, it